for the side ladder, you've got your two railings and the two end or side pieces where your steps slot into, and then you've got the covers that will go over these pieces. They're unsightly if you leave them, so we can just add a blanking plate over the top. And obviously there's only one railing that will go down the side of the rails. Don't need to have railings either side. And on the here at the end, you've got the back and the front slot piece, so when you join it together, this piece will go at the back and join nice and flush, and this one will go at the front. Obviously then make sure that the F is facing the other way around and not facing out, and that will just hold everything together. So you need to take them out, the little tags, just a couple held in a couple of positions, and again there should be engraved lines, I think, or somewhere, I can't remember, I think near enough in the middle. You can always turn it over and find out where they're notched in. I think I did them in the middle. I will try and put some engraved lines just so you know where to go. Cut them out with the zippy blade or sharp knife. Just be careful you don't damage them. And then obviously then you need to start adding these to the sides, and it might be worth doing one side at a time. I remember doing this for the 7-tunnel demo that I did, and it was very, very tricky, but got there in the end. So it's just a matter, like most things, take your time and do them. But let's cut everything out and get ready to fit those. I'm not sure if there's an easy way or not, but what I've done is, you'll see I've completed one here, but I've fitted this one first, allowed it to dry, and then I've fitted the end one and allowed that to dry. That then makes these a little bit easier to work with, and then literally I'm sliding them in the slots and then putting the smallest dab of glue on the outside to keep it in position, and then allowing it to dry. Once it's dry, then we can actually add the side plate, and then obviously the railings on the other side. Right, so they're the steps done. Now they are a bastard to do, so you definitely need some tweezers, patience, good eyesight, and extremely good lighting. Just take your time. Say it's literally getting the first one in, allow that to dry before you go anywhere else, and then work your way from the back. Once you've got that one in and slotted in, just add the tiny little dab of glue on the outside. You don't need much, or even underneath, and let that one dry. That then creates the frame for you to then slot these other 4 in, and I simply just add a tiny dab of glue down the end, the smallest piece, and then obviously then you fit your front panel and your back panel. Now if I put the B round the wrong way, unfortunately, that should be facing outwards or facing the other way, so obviously when you put it up onto the shed you won't see it, but a bit of paint is not going to hurt. Once these are fully allowed to dry, then we've got these bits. Now obviously you've got 3 steps free, so just in case you cock up a couple, there is a couple of spare ones. Now these panels here will go on one side and cover up the unsightly joins, and then your railing will go on the other side and cover up the other side of the joins, and then you've got your safety rail going up one side. And then obviously then you'll need to paint these as well. I did these on the 7-tunnel demo kit that I did, and I think I did them in sort of like a silver, so it will match the handrails. But these are fiddly, so just please take your time. It's most probably the trickiest part of the build, to be honest, and it's most probably only about 30mm wide, 35mm long. So just take your time on these and you will get there. Patience hopefully will prevail. And there you have your fully finished roof ladder, and you can see the plate covers up the unsightly joins there, and obviously when you put this one on it does exactly the same. So by the time you've painted them up they should look pretty smart. So I'm going to put those to one side now, let them dry thoroughly, and we'll get around to painting them very soon along with the safety rails, and then we can think about adding them to the roof. Time to move on to fitting the roof walkway and steps. So you'll have 2 walkways that you should have made up and 2 roof ladders that you should have made up and painted. Now the step ladder should fit flush with the end, so ideally you just need a piece of wood just to put it on the side to make sure it's flush, and it needs to be level with the 2 hole gaps here Now most of you can't see it on this video, there's one there and one there. This is where the step ladder needs to come up, and obviously the walkway is slightly wider than the length of the windows, so you just need to make sure that you try and put this in the correct position. Now I'm suggesting that you fit the roof ladder here first and use some rocket card glue or glue and glaze. You might want to use glue and glaze because I think glue and glaze you can move for a little bit longer, so just make sure you get it in the correct position right next to those two holes. Allow that to dry thoroughly, and then we can add this. Now you're going to need to fit this with your eye to make sure you've got it the same length either side. So obviously at the moment I think that's a little bit further over this side than it is over this side, so I'm going to need to move it over and then move the step ladder over. So you need to make sure you get this right before gluing it in place. Once you've glued this in position, then you can glue your walkway in position, and obviously you've got 20 odd parts that you can glue this to your roof. And again, I would certainly suggest using some rocket card glue or glue and glaze, it's entirely up to you. And you're going to most probably need to hold it in position for a while for it to take bond to the corrugated roof, and just use your eye to make sure that you get it level along the top. So at the moment that's not, so I would push it up, etc. This is where you need to really take your time. You've got to get this right first time. So first point of call is getting this in the correct position, flush with the edge. Obviously it's fallen down slightly, so we need to focus on getting that correct. So I'm going to mark where the walkway goes and get that into the correct position, and then just little mark where the step ladder goes, and then I can glue the step ladder in place, and then we'll fit the walkway. Once we've glued that all in position, then we can think about adding the safety railings. I don't think it's worth adding the safety railings first, because we just need to make sure that we've got them at the correct angle. So we'll do those afterwards. It might be that it's easier to fit them before. Haven't thought about that, to be honest. That's entirely up to you whether you fit your safety railings first or second. So let's have a go fitting this in position. We'll come back and show you when it's done. So when you're happy that your roof ladder is dry, you can then obviously add your walkway. And what I've done is obviously I've glued underneath all the supports with some glue and glaze, put it into position gently, made sure I lined it up with my eye, held it there for a good few minutes with my hands. But then what I've done is I've used the spacer for the roof just to put on top, just to give it a little bit of added weight while the glue sets. And if you want to, you can just hold it there into position as well, and that will hopefully make it adhere to the corrugated roof a little bit easier. So that's just another little tip. So we'll wait for that to dry, and then we can think about doing the same to the other side. And there we have our walkways and ladders fitted. Now on the production model, I'll most probably rotate this one so the step ladder here is replicated here rather than down this end. I would imagine they would have been that. So what I'll do is I'll flip this one, and so you can put the ladders in both ends. So I'll make that amendment. I think it'll look better. So now we need to do is to add the railings to the walkways. So with the premium kit, you'll get your roof railings, which you get two, obviously, the long ones, and then at the end you get 3 singles. Now the first ones here, the wider ones, are the ones that will fit here between the ladder and the end, and then your single ones are the ones that go on the end across and at the end across, and obviously you've got 4 of those. So I've painted these in a steel silver, and again both sides, and then once you've done that, all you need to do is get your blade and literally cut them out at the very bottom of the template, and then they need to be glued into position. Now there are tiny little holes. Now they're only 0.5 mil in depth, so it might be a little bit tricky. You can always use a tiny little pin drill and make them a little bit thicker in depth if you want to, but I'm hoping that a 0.5 will hold them in position. We'll soon find out. If there's any problems, then obviously I'll make some adjustments. So I'm going to add those and I'll come back and show you. And there are the railings and ladders all in place. Now that has been extremely fiddly, so what I'll most probably do for the production one is put the holes all the way through the base plate as well, rather than just the top, so you can actually slot them all the way in, and then you'll most probably have to use some kind of piece of card to slot underneath here while you're pushing them down so they don't go too far through. But the 0.5 is a little bit fiddly. What I ended up doing was like gluing these three, allowing these to dry, and then doing two at a time, hopefully getting them all in. I think I'm one over there, looks though that hasn't gone in because it's raised up slightly, but hey ho, we learn as we go along. So I'm most probably going to drill the holes through the laser into both the top plate and the base plate, and you'll just have to put a piece of card underneath, so when you slot these in they don't go all the way through, and just enough to take hold inside these holes. So I've used super glue, dabbed the super glue, but if I do the holes all the way through, you can most probably get away with some glue and glaze, and it won't show any unsightly marks. But that's that done. Extremely fiddly. You need to take time when you do that, and obviously there's the end one as well, but it certainly looks good with roof rails on. And obviously again, this is on the premium kit only. The standard kit will come with just a full corrugated roof with no windows, safety railings or ladders, but it will be a cheaper option. So let's move on to the next part. Now that I've finished doing the ladder and railings on the roof, I've just taken it off. I'm going to be gluing my roof down. So obviously you have 4 roof supports, so it's simply a matter of dabbing a little bit of glue along all the 4 supports. I'm going to use the cocktail stick dabbing method. I'm going to be using most probably glue and glaze on this one, because if I overspill any, it will dry fairly clear and you won't see it from inside. And then I'm going to put it into position, and then I'll hold it at the ends just to make sure it bonds. Again, you could use those little excess pieces for the roof templates to keep it in position and allow it to dry thoroughly, making sure that you get it at the ends. So I'm going to be doing that. I don't need to be taking my roof on and off. It's got side glazing anyway, so I think you can see in it. So I'm going to be adding glue to both panels, put it in place, and then that'll be ready for adding an apex capping as well. So hopefully you've got to this stage where you've done your roof, and obviously this is people who have purchased the premium kit. You'll have your walkway, safety railings and ladder. We then need to move on to then fit basically a roof capping. So we have a corrugated capping. Now this piece has a line down the center, and it's ideal because you can then pinch this as you go along to fold it to an angle, and that will be ready for priming. You also then have the end pieces to go at the end of your depot along here and there. Now there's a choice of 2. You can have a plain one or you can have a corrugated one. It's entirely up to you. I will include both in the pack. And then you've got your corrugated side panels that go down here, down the end here, and obviously on the other end. And then you've also got your 4 small strips that go down here and there. So all these need to be primed. I'm going to do them in grey to match the roof, allow them to dry, and then we can think about gluing those in position. Moving on to another part of the premium kit is the side ladder. So we've done our railings and we've done our down steps, so we need the ladder to go down here and obviously on the other side as well. And obviously I did say that I'll most probably on the production kit have the ladders opposite each other, which makes sense. So the kit, you get your 2 ladders, you'll get your side ladder protection plates, whatever they call them, that go round, and then you've got the railings that will go along these. Now these are held in up here and a tag, and down there in a tag, and obviously then you've got your bottom plates that literally will go into that hole there, that hole there, and these will then go nicely against your brick wall. The rest of these, now the first 2, this one here and this one here, are your top plates. Now if you can notice, this bit here that goes in is a lot thinner than these ones here. That is because the ladder protrudes out at the top, so they'll go in the top there, and then you've got your other 6 parts that will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now they do protrude out slightly, they don't actually fit fully inside the ladder. They're designed so it's partly in the ladder, part out, so you need to fit those. Now these are going to be extremely fiddly to make, and these are held on by tags, I think from memory, here and here. So just take them out and be gentle, carefully with these, because this is only 0.8 material. The railings are 0.5, and obviously the 3 railings will go down through there, there and there, and again they'll protrude out. Now it makes sense to put it all together before you paint it. Unless you want to paint these and the railings in different colours, then you're going to have to paint them, but you might not then be able to fit them in the gaps. So I'm recommending that you fit the whole thing together. So I'm going to fit one together, and I'll come back and show you when it's done. Right, so I finished making my side ladders with all the supports and down posts. There's a couple of little things and just I most probably will change. And you've got 2 parts that go on the back here that will then fit up against your brickwork, which will allow it to protrude past the concrete lintel so it doesn't get in the way. I may make that slightly bigger. I also found by putting it within the lip of the ladder hasn't really made any benefit, so what I'm going to do is get rid of that and then allow this to form on the outside. So I'll make it slightly longer, and then you can fit this wherever you like. All you need to do is make sure you fit 2, 1, 2, because this is the only place where you need to glue the side ladder. Once that's glued in place, you don't need to glue it anywhere else. It should stay where it is. All these other parts, now obviously the railings that go down are extremely thin, and I found that obviously a couple of mine are a little bit wonky. Now the reason for that is when you fit these railing supports, when you put them down, obviously put your ladder down and then put a tiny bit of glue on the insert of the ladder where there's a gap, and then use your fingers to manipulate that into position, but make sure it's pushed right down. So when you turn it over, the edge, you can get close, the edge of the surround is level with the back of the ladder. I think on a couple of these, like that one there, it's not, and hence when you look at it, it's slightly higher than the rest, and hence we get this out of line proportion. I don't think you'd actually find that these would be purely straight anyway, but I'm also going to make the railings that go down slightly longer. They just fitted, so I think most probably the best bet is to make them longer, and then you can snip them off at the ends, and that will make life a lot easier. Now I only used rocket card glue on this, and obviously when I fitted them, I glued 2 in place, held that one in position to bond, pushed that one in, and I held my cocktail stick here. This was then loose, and then I gradually worked my way down, doing a couple at a time, just to make sure that it fit. And obviously I got to the end and it was just touching. Now then, after I've glued it all, I've gone along and with the cocktail stick added some blobs either side, and again on the sides of the ladders, and they look like welding joints by the time you've dried it. And obviously these have been painted, so as you can see they've come out really well. but that's things I'll change. I'll most probably make the inserts into the side ladder where these go just most probably 0.1 wider, so they fit in there better. And I'm going to make this so they fit on the outside rather than utilize on the inside, because it does make this ladder extremely fragile here, and I think I might have snapped it there. So having it on the outside will make life a lot easier, and you can most probably bring that one up to this one, so there's a bit more strength, and this one you could keep the same. Hope that all makes sense. But they're all painted and ready to be glued to the side, so I'll show you once that's done. Okay, so when you come to glue it, because obviously the width of the lintel and obviously putting these in, you will need to glue this top part, because obviously it's vertical, so you just need to move it over slightly. So I've glued it to this railing here, and I've also glued it to the edge of the side step here. Now I have used 2 little dabs of super glue on there just to make sure it doesn't come away. Now obviously the other thing to remember, if you're buying the premium kit and you're going for the roof and not gluing it in place, and you do not want to be gluing this part to the steps, you can leave the gaps, then obviously you can take the roof off, so just bear that in mind. Obviously you won't have your roof apex glued either, but just in case. But those who are gluing it down, you will need to glue it in the top parts there, and I suggest most probably a little dab of super glue to keep it in position.